Kalal Yahweh, Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles who taught me this truth. This is your brother Dawad, the real brother beloved, and this is only for the
only for the elect.
Only for the elect. The reason you came around is because you thought we had the truth and that we was men of the Lord.
Thank you, Jordan. Yes, I just finished having a great conversation with Stephen here.
Yes,
Stephen,
yes.
he is a native to Kansas City.
Bear man,
but they call Bear Man. He is actually here in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
He mentioned to me earlier how he came in with a limo.
Yeah, with
a whole limo. Tell me a little bit about it.
27 feet of winning, baby. That's what I'm talking about. 4 bones on 100 spokes, large and in charge, big cars and movie stars.
Came in
Twisted
style,
steel
in style.
and sex appeal.
In style. So, Stephen, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me, when did you become a Trump supporter, and what drew you to him, and what were you always a conservative, Republican? Tell me.
Yeah, I walked away from the Republicans back in 2006. Once we gave them a trifecta from 04 to 06, they spent like drunken sailors, and they became, basically Democrats. So I walked away from them back then. Then they, half the country's wealth was stolen in broad daylight. September of 09, nobody goes to jail except Bernie Madoff, and he was stealing from his own people. Then, of course, they ushered in Obama to normalize Marxism in the United States of America, teeing it up for Hillary to do us in. I just, you think it'd be common sense you wouldn't vote for a guy named Obama for president of the United States, particularly since that wasn't even his real name, but.
Well, thank you for sharing that. One more question for you too. Where do you stand with all the issues that are taking place in today? I should say more recently with the whole BLM movement, the whole police, anti-police, anti-government, almost basically. Where do you stand with all that?
Well, the thing is that if you're going to burn down cities and defund the police, you're no friend of ours. These people are the same people that rigged an election, rigged an investigation, and rigged an impeachment process against the American people, and they lost all 3. They voted for a guy named Obama not once but twice, and he stole everything.
For thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, the daughter of Babylon is like a threshing floor. It is time to thresh her. Yet a little while, and the time of her harvest shall come.
Shalom, Yasharala. London Bridge is falling down, my fair lady. In all fairness, Steve may very well be an Israelite. Does not strike me as one who needs salt or needs more garlic. In any event, don't be shy, Steve. Tell him how you really feel. Before we go on, I gotta tell you, those unfamiliar with my platform, I don't believe in democracy, as in I don't believe in the political idea of by the people, for the people truly exists. Left wing, right wing, all a part of the same bird brain outfit that has managed to pacify and rock the citizens of the so-called free world to sleep for years. Not to mention your right to vote is the ultimate illusion of choice. McDonald's versus Burger King, Pepsi versus Coke, Newports versus Kools, none of them are good for you. Just as the notion of subscribing to a faction which best speaks to your issues and personal concerns to be argued about later is how a democracy is best suited to work. All of it is none more than a theater propped up by an elaborate script, a 3-part made-for-TV movie. That being said, London Bridge is falling down. And if you can find your way through the political smoke screen and filter out the bullshit, you can see the system and those who run it for what it is. This is Isaiah chapter 14, verse 4, and it reads, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor ceased, the golden city ceased? Clearly, America, in accordance with the prophecies found in the scriptures, is and emanates the spirit of Babylon the Great. But America is no longer held in the same esteem, nor is regarded with the same reverence as far as its government leaders. Don't get me started with the respect of other nations. Its power domestically as well as internationally has waned, and quite frankly, its reputation has long been in decline. 30 years ago, you may have heard some murmurings regarding the loss of faith in its leadership, but no time in history have you heard such disdain and distasteful rhetoric from the patriots of its republic as you hear today. Trump is the modern-day king of Babylon, and Esau Edom is the nation of its rulership. Verse 5, The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked and the scepter of the rulers. And why all the animosity? Could it be the treatment of its veterans, police brutality, systemic racism, its foreign diplomacy, or maybe it's the populace is waking up to the truth and are now full aware of the government's deeds and deception. Ultimately, the truth is it's of the Lord's doing. The power and respect of its leaders are gone because the Heavenly Father willed it so, and that spirit of disdain and displeasure has spread like wildfire amongst its allies and the other nations, hence the civil unrest in Canada, London, Hong Kong, France, Lebanon, etc. Yes, phone had to chime on that. That's salutations to Elder Apostle Gabar. Yes, Soros and his paid mobs are amongst the plethora of great contributors to the global insurrections taking place, but it is Yahweh that has put the battery in the back of these national leaders. The unrest you see taking place across the world speaks to the end of the heathen's reign. Republican, Democrat, Independent, all government leaders and political parties have lost their mojo, period, and it's all of Yahweh's will and its doing.
That's why they were down on Epstein Island raping and eating those babies down there. Just look at the flight logs. They all knew who he was, what he did, where he did it. That's why they got on his plane to fly down there and do it with them. That's what the real problem is. It's pedophilia. And as soon as, everybody finds out that all these people are pedophiles, that's when the party really begins.
Yes, we got to expose them for who they really are and show people, give people the truth instead of continuing.
$65,000 worth of hot dogs. Please explain that to me. It's in their own emails.
Now, this is a long-standing allegation that has yet to be substantiated with any physical evidence, at least any that I, as a common legal practitioner, when I was working in the law community anyways, would have access to. But I'll get back to that. First off, do I believe the powers that shouldn't be practice rituals and human sacrifice? An emphatic yes. What do you call kneeling on a man's neck with your hands in your pocket for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, removing your knee at 2 minutes and 54 after the man stops pleading and moving? You do the math. In front of a garbage can spray painted with the numerals that is most equated with Satanism, 666. Now, as I started to address, do I believe Steve's allegations against the elite leadership regarding eating babies and playing hide and go get it with small children? Another emphatic yes. Why? Forget the hidden messaging found in Disney's animation, material highly sexual in nature being promoted to kids, and reports of genetic tissue found in act scenes as well as food preservatives. First and foremost, because it's scriptural. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1, and it reads, And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day. Speaking of the law, statutes, and commandments outlined in Deuteronomy chapter 28, as well as detailed all throughout the Holy Bible, that the Lord thy power will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power. In the interest of time, let's jump down to 15. And it reads, But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. As I stated earlier, outlined in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter, and throughout the scriptures, are the curses that befell the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Indians, one curse being slavery. Matter of fact, even if you bow down and sell your soul to Satan, you are still subject to these curses. Now, be patient and bear with me, as there's a point to be made here. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 7 now, and we'll start at 1. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whither the Lord thy power hath driven thee. And where were the Israelites driven among all nations? Specifically Babylon the Great, America, as well as being scattered across the four corners of the globe. Verse 4, If any of thine be driven out unto the outmost parts of heaven, speaking of America, from thence will the Lord thy power gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. Verse 7, now here's the point. And the Lord thy power will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. Ergo, the curses that befell Israel are now falling on Esau, Edom, and the other nations. Those that hate and persecute thee speaks to Esau, Edom, and the so-called white establishment as well as the other nations that allied against us past and present, and the leadership that rules over us now. Speaking to the Beer Man statement, for those who don't know, through his maternal grandmother, Barack Hussein Obama is related to 6 former U.S. presidents, including George Bush. This is Ezekiel chapter 5, verse 10, and we'll start at verse 8. Therefore, thus saith the Lord Power, Behold, I, even I, am against thee, and will execute judgments in the midst of thee in the sights of the nations. And this speaks to the punishment received for another one of the countless times Israel had rebelled against Yahweh's statutes. Verse 9, And I will do in thee that which I have not done, and whereunto I will not do any more of the like, because of all thine abominations. Abomination meaning our wicked, sinful, and immoral acts. Verse 10, Therefore the fathers shall eat the sons in the midst of thee, and the sons shall eat their fathers, and I will execute judgments in thee, and the whole remnant of thee will I scatter in all the winds. Now these instances of cannibalism were fulfilled several times in the scriptures through the mothers of Israel. The siege of Samaria in 2 Kings, the siege of Jerusalem under Nebuchadnezzar in Lamentations 4, and in 70 AD again in Jerusalem, this time under Titus Vespasian. As far as the fathers eating their offspring and vice versa, I think it's fair enough to surmise it happened on the plantation during the transatlantic slave trade, and in some respects is happening today in the instances I pointed out earlier. Now that the truth of who Israel really is being revealed, and the men of the Lord have been called back to righteousness, teaching and preaching and prophesying this truth, the curses we've experienced then will continue to experience as a nation until we are redeemed through the coming of the Lord Yahweh Shai, are starting to overtake Esau, Edom, and the enemies confederate against the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native American Indians. Even if it is done willingly, it is still a curse. You have no idea the peril it causes the human body when ingesting itself. Now let's jump to Joel chapter 3, verse 1, and it reads, For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, meaning those who enslaved us are destined for captivity, pursuant to Revelation 13 and 10, verse 2. And I will also gather all nations, and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. Being brought down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, the long and short of it is speaking to the ensuing war of Armageddon and World War III. And I will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. Verse 3, and to the point. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for a harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Now this is one of the many atrocities committed against Israel during our captivity, under the subjection of Esau, Edom, particularly during slavery and the assault of the indigenous 10 tribes that first inhabited America upon the arrival of Cristobal Colon and his conquistadors to western shores. This curse in itself is still prevalent amongst Israel, more so now than ever, but child sex trafficking is a phenomenon that is rapidly taking over all nations, Europe, Asia, and Thailand, etc., at the hands of Esau, Edom. What is not being mentioned is the industry of organ trafficking and abduction plaguing children that is equally rampant and has run out of control. I'd love to address everything the beer man had to say, but again, in the interest of time, and really in the recognition of short attention spans, I'll close with this. This is Psalms chapter 137 and 1, and it reads, By the rivers of Babylon there we sat down, and we wept when we remembered Zion, when we remembered Jerusalem as our land as well as our nation. We hanged our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion. Sing, nigga, sing. Dance, nigga, dance. Run, nigga, run. You know, when the sentiment shared regarding so-called blacks and browns in sports and entertainment today. Verse 4, How shall we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Meaning, how shall we sing being taken from our home and left subject to a new land? If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem being our homeland, pursuant to Galatians 4 and 26, let my right hand forget her cunning, playing of the harp. Verse 6, If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, if I prefer not Jerusalem above my chief joy. Remember, O Lord, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem, who said, raise it, even to the foundation thereof. Raze it meaning destroy it, demolish it, make it destitute and bare. Verse 8, O daughter of Babylon, who art to be destroyed, happy shall he be that rewardeth thee as thou hast served us. Happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. Call halal Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shabbat Shem Rakakodash. Through the power and spirit, I hope you were edified. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect. Shalom Yasharala. Don't take that chip.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I had one question for you. Why do you choose today not to wear a mask?
Well, the reason why I don't wear a mask is because it's not easy being a trendsetter. You know, people think it's easy, but it's not. I mean, it's a hoax. 99.7% survival rate. Are you kidding me? I mean, you've got Bill Gates running around like a psychopath trying to cram his vaccine down my throat, and I'm doing just fine without it, Bill. Didn't you go down to Epstein Island yourself? Epstein and Weinstein just doesn't sound like a Presbyterian problem to us.
Explain this.
Do we have to? I guess we should.
Well, we should.
We happen to have someone who sent us Monica Lewinsky's poem that she wrote in 9th grade. Actually, not in 9th grade, when she was a 9-year-old. And I know I'm going to rot in hell eternally for this, but can I maybe just give it a sample?
Yeah, give a sample.
Okay. It was written, the poem is a poignant rumination on how, quote, I can be a delicious lunch, dinner, or breakfast, if you're weird. She goes on to describe herself, quote, as a round and flat piece of dough with lots of topping. I am a mouth's best friend. I make you say, yum, yum.